Hello, I am the Blue One, Games Master of Elthos, and I would like to talk today a little bit about the alignment system that I've created and I've programmed into the Mythos machine. And the way that I think of it is it's a system of correspondences that allows me to do a number of interesting things. Um, One of them is that it allows me to use correspondences that would be like if the black dog came from the west, then I would understand that that means black is a color that relates to a certain alignment associated Elkron, which is a deity. Um, and a dog may represent another Elkron, and the west may represent a third Elkron. And what this combination might show me is the fusion of forces in, let's say, a current scenario. So the party, comes over the edge of the hill, and there's the black dog coming from the west. Now, I might understand as Games Master that this represents a great deal of foreshadowing about the nature of the campaign that they're entering or the region that they're entering in the game world, or it could have to do with, let's say, part of a storyline where I'm foreshadowing something about, anything that's about to happen, or maybe something along those lines. So if it was a red dog that was coming from the east, that would mean something completely different in terms of this configuration of forces. And then if I had two things like a dog and let's say an eagle, and I know the eagle represents the sun and the dog represents, let's say, Scorpio, which is the constellation that is associated with the underworld, then I might be able to create a kind of language of symbolism. So when I was games mastering years ago, I really wanted that, and I couldn't put it together. I'd use symbols, and I tried to do things along those lines, and it would sort of fall flat because there wasn't really an underlying basis for my symbols. I would just create them and then they would change over time, or I'd forget that this symbol I used this way, but another time I actually used it that way. So I had the concept, but I didn't have the mechanism. And so what I did was I spent, a certain amount of time, and I won't belabor you with how much time because it's embarrassing, but I spent a certain amount of time putting together a system of correspondences that would work for this. And so it's embodied actually in my Elthos tarot deck. On the back face card of the tarot deck, on each card, there is what is called the celestial map of Elthos, and it shows the correspondences between the constellations and the planets. And from that, there's a whole permutation of correspondences to tarot card Jungian archetypes, to various symbols like trees, incense, colors, musical notes, animals, monsters, weapons. So there's this rather large array of correspondences that relate across each of these Elkron. And the way I have it set up is that every alignment, so on this system you can see, well, sort of see, I hope you can see, you can barely see, but it's basically divided up into 12 pie slices. And the pie slices are one for each constellation. So each zodiac sign has a pie slice. And then in that pie slice are both the zodiac sign and then the corresponding planet that zodiac sign rules over. And then from there, that's the sort of foundation of it. And then from there, I have this whole set of correspondences that relate to each of these Elkron. The Elkron are not exactly deities. They kind of correspond with deities in a sense, but they're really personifications of each alignment. So I started with the basis of I want an alignment system. And I created this correspondence system and mapped it to my alignment system, which is what you see here. So can't really see it because I have this crazy color scheme going on with my camera. But at the very top is is good. And at the bottom is evil. And on the, well, I'll just say on the east side is law and on the west side is chaos. And then each zodiac sign and planetary sign fits within that alignment system. So just to give you an idea, Mars is the Elkron of war in the Jungian sense, and that is in the chaotic evil zone, way over on the chaos side and on the evil side. Then I have, let's say, for example, Virgo. Virgo is in square in the center of lawful and good. You know, the Virgin, goddess of fertility, the earth, and so on, lawful good. Let's see. Scorpio is on the extreme lawful side on evil. So it's lawful evil, and so on. So each of these alignments has been mapped into this, zodiac framework. Or I should say the zodiac framework has been mapped onto the alignment system. So what that does is that allows me to create a fabric of symbolism that I can then use as a means to do the kinds of nuanced and also, I would say, stable and meaningful correspondences that are symbolic in my game. And that kind of works for me. And what I did was I ran a few games where I kind of went heavy on it just to try it out. And it was very interesting. When I read over the story and I highlighted all the points where I had used these symbols, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally, and I reviewed it, I really found that I could read the story that happened at a completely different level than just the plot line and the character relationships. I could read the story as a kind of symbolic map that had its own ebb and flow, and in its own way, it made sense to me. And I was kind of blown away by it. And I thought, wow, this is actually really interesting. And some of the things like I consciously did while I was playing, and some of the things just kind of bubbled up out of how the correspondences wound up relating. And I felt, wow, it's kind of like serendipity in a way, how these things have kind of, worked together to create this other layer of story. So I think it's a really interesting system, and it has a lot of potential in terms of being able to create this kind of symbolic reference mapping to my game that I like. So anyway, just wanted to talk about that for a few seconds. I'm kind of enamored by it. Of course, it's one of those things, it's my baby, so of course I love it, kind of thing. And other people might look at this and say, okay, maybe it doesn't make sense for other people. Some people might look at it and say, okay, that does sound kind of intriguing, and I'm curious, and maybe I could use that. So I have this system. It's inherent in the Elthos role-playing game, which is my baby, and I haven't published anything about it. All I have is on the tarot deck, I have that back face card. And the tarot deck I'm going to publish very soon, but I haven't actually published it yet, although I do have all the Major Arcana cards on my website. So they can be found there. If you go to images in Google and you look up Elthos RPG Tarot Deck, you'll actually find images of the cards. Not with explanation as to how the correspondences work, but that's something that I'm going to roll out over time. And I don't know what that time frame really is going to be honest, because I'm kind of reticent about sort of revealing it, because I use it in my game, and in a way it's supposed to, for me, I want it to be this layer of mystery for my players. And so, like many things with how I games master, I'm reticent about publishing how I do it. It's sort of like the magician, explaining how he does the magic trick. So I'm kind of ambivalent about it, but I still wanted to talk about it, to give the idea out there and, say this is one of the things that I'm working on and one of the things that's kind of inherent in my game, and sort of why I like it and how I use it. So anyway, that's it. The blue one, signing out. I kind of like this color scheme. It's a little weird, but it's colorful, so I kind of like it. I don't know, it's weird. So anyway, all right, but that's me, VB Weird, so what do you expect, All right, ciao.